What if the secret to scaling your law firm isn't doing more, but focusing on less? Welcome to the Lawyer Millionaire Podcast, where we help ambitious law firm owners expand their businesses, maximize their profits, and grow their wealth. When many law firm owners think about scaling, they picture doing more clients, more practice areas, more complexity. But what if the path to growth lies in narrowing your focus instead? Today, we'll uncover how niching down can spark innovation, simplify operations, and drive exponential growth for your firm. Miriam Airington-Fisher is the founder and owner of Arrington Law, an immigration firm focused on serving Spanish-speaking individuals. By honing in on this particular community, she's built a thriving, innovative practice that proves the power of specialization in scaling a business. All right, Miriam. Well, we're really excited to be here with you today and learn all about your great success and some of the cool things you've done with marketing and branding. We'll get into that. You've built a very successful law firm focusing on Spanish speakers while also balancing the demands of raising a family and all that entails. Some might say that is an impossible juggling act. What has been the secret to making it work for you?
Well, having my own firm really was the secret to me balancing a successful legal career and raising a family simultaneously. That's what inspired me to start my firm was when my daughter was born, and just really wanting to be in the driver's seat, having the flexibility to figure out how I was going to balance both of them in a profession that back then and especially and still now to a degree is very like traditional, and not as flexible as some other fields. So that was really key, and that's why I'm just a big supporter of entrepreneurship for lawyers
So
in
wait a
general.
minute. You're telling me that starting a law practice gave you more time? Because, you know, for a lot of people, starting and running a law practice, they think it's going to give them more time. And then they realize, oh crap, I'm running a business and I got to be a lawyer at the same time.
Well, I don't know if it gave me more time, it gave me more
Okay.
control. So, it gave me more flexibility as far as when I was going to be doing the work. Definitely, I don't wanna undersell the amount of time and effort that it took and still takes, but, when you're in charge and you can decide how you wanna delegate and build your organization and utilize technology and all of those things, those were not things that were within my control when I was working for someone else's law firm. So it's really more about just being in the driver's seat. It's not to say that it's easier or that you work
Yeah,
less.
absolutely. It can be very challenging, as I'm sure you're very familiar. So let's kind of dive into your niche, which is Spanish speakers. I was on a call the other day with some other law firm owners uh, who focus on immigration, actually, much like you. And they were talking about how they serve everybody and that works for them. But you decided to really focus down to Spanish speaking individuals specifically. What was it that led to that?
So it was a progression. It took me a while to really feel comfortable to focus that much. I think that kind of a common sort of panic reaction to new law firm owners is I'm going to take as much as I can or whatever comes in the door. It's hard to turn away business. I'm bilingual, and when I moved to Richmond as a brand new law school graduate, this was 16 years ago, over 16 years ago, there were very few bilingual attorneys in Richmond. So it actually gave me a great opportunity to I think build up a practice much more quickly because I kind of became the Spanish speaking lawyer. And so even though at that time I was doing criminal law and some family law as a young associate, I was constantly getting referrals from other lawyers who didn't speak Spanish, and so that ended up being a great opportunity for me. I went to law school in Miami, and in South Florida, being bilingual is not that much of a leg up. It's kind of a requirement. So moving to Richmond, back then was that was really a great opportunity. Um, I had been practicing, I think, for about 8 years when I started my practice, which was 8 years ago. So that would make sense. And at that time, still, I wasn't fully committed to having like a really target. As a new law firm owner, I had that panic of not wanting to turn down cases. But over time, as my business grew in general, I realized that the more that I was trying to do and the more clients that I was trying to market to, it really was a hurdle more rather than just, you might think, okay, well, the more I do, the more business I'll have. It made it difficult to really communicate our value to having multiple different client avatars, to use the marketing speak. And so as we built the practice and I started using social media and digital marketing and things like that, we basically were doubling our efforts in those areas because we had to do everything in English and Spanish, and all of our systems and we had to have,
Yeah.
all of our contracts and things like that. We basically were like doubling everything. And so that was one sort of pragmatic consideration, that picking one language to really focus in allowed us to streamline everything from our intake process to our
Yep.
documents, and probably most importantly to our marketing efforts. I then, maybe 2 years or so ago, I sort of had one of those like light bulb moments that we have as entrepreneurs. It's probably like walking somewhere in the shower. And I just realized that, I wanted us to be fully committed to our ideal client and to our target client base. And as immigration lawyers, we can represent people all over the world. And we have clients in other states, we have clients in other countries, but the vast majority, I mean, 90% of our clients are in Central Virginia and are Spanish speakers. And so, although we're not limited to that, that's what we draw, that's what we do. And I just felt very strongly that our firm should reflect who we're serving. And we should have everything really be for the clients that we were serving. To sort of reflect that, that community has made an investment in our firm, and I wanted our firm to
I
reflect
love it.
that.
You've hit a lot of really, really great points here. And this is so great because we've done this in our own business by focusing on law firm owners. I'm hearing the things you're saying about streamlining, and everything is then the same. Once you have one client avatar that you're focused on, you don't have to reinvent the wheel every time you have a new client. So I would argue there's a great case to be made for profitability from two perspectives, right? Number one, it makes you more efficient. But number two, I think it makes you so much more attractive. Did you find when you took that step and went all in, did it open up the doors for you in terms of revenue?
Absolutely. It really did. It was definitely a threshold moment. And it makes so much sense in hindsight. People, and it even applies not just to the language aspect, but also to the practice area. We scaled out of criminal defense and family law to focus on immigration. And, clients want to be represented by somebody who handles their type of case or who represents people like them. And it makes perfect sense because as a law firm owner, I like working with other professionals that work with law firm owners. My CPA does taxes for law firms,
Yeah,
things like that. And so, yeah, people want to know that we're a firm that handles immigration cases for Spanish speakers. And that's exactly who we are.
I
And
love
that's who we
that. Yeah.
attract.
I've heard people say that, and I've experienced this myself, you're worried that focusing in one area is going to narrow the market for you, but what you find is it actually broadens the market for you in so many ways. And so,
Hmm.
hey, law firm owner, as you're listening to this, think about this. And I love how creative this is, Miriam, because you've really, most people, when they think about a niche, they just focus on their practice area, but it goes so much deeper than that. And we experienced the same thing because when I started niching in my business, or maybe it's niching, I don't know. Um,
I never
right.
know.
Um, it was focused on lawyers. And then as I got to know lawyers and got to know the legal world, I'm like, well, there are a lot of different kinds of lawyers. The legal field is still very, very broad. And so we decided to focus on small law firm owners, because they have a lot of really similar challenges that they're dealing with. So, I mean, like, you can take immigration and you can boil it down to, different areas of the world, different languages. You could take Spanish speakers. It's still super broad. I mean, you could boil that down even further. So, hey, if you're listening to this show and you're like, oh darn, Miriam has stolen Spanish speakers as a niche, there are lots of other niches that are open to you to explore.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know that there are successful firms that have multiple practice areas. We've done that in the past, and what we found was that, even if we felt like we were being profitable in all of those practice areas, when we actually really honed down and did a profit analysis by practice area, immigration emerged as a clear lead. And then when you kind of compared them together, it was almost like we were making all of our money there and in a way losing money in our other practice areas because of the operating cost and the opportunity cost. So, for us, that really was kind of a sort of level change, or unlocking type of moment.
Yeah, absolutely. So would that be kind of a first step for folks? Like, if you're thinking about narrowing your focus, that profitability analysis, tell us a little bit more about that.
So that is another area that I struggled with for years, literally years, as a law firm owner. It's like, how do you figure out what cases are profitable, what practice areas are profitable? So I did not come up with my own formula. I learned a lot about the fireproof model from different legal seminars. If you're familiar, the Mike Morris Law Firm. So his team, they have a phenomenal presentation that I've seen at a couple different conferences where they talk very openly about how they analyze profit at their firm. So we adopted that. I worked with my CFO to kind of apply that to our practice area. They're a personal injury firm on contingency, so there are a couple differences. But basically, I mean, the idea is that you try to isolate a team within your office. At my firm, it's like an attorney, a paralegal, and a legal assistant, and in the profit area, and then see, what's the revenue there, what's the revenue in the other areas. And so when we did that for immigration and criminal and family, we could clearly see where the firm's profit was coming from. That was kind of step one. And then now that we do exclusively immigration, we can still track by pod to make sure that all of the pods are being equally profitable. But data is key. And I know you're a numbers guy, so that's not news to you. But as I'm sure you know from working with law firms, a lot of small law firms don't operate on data. It's, most of us go into this as lawyers, not with a business background. And so that was a big learning curve for me. And that's something now that I can't imagine living without, or making any business decisions without those numbers.
Fabulous. I love it. Fireproof. We're big fans. Very, EOS, all of that good stuff. Love to hear that. And that's just a great reason why you need to start looking at and tracking those numbers, because you were able to uncover this area of opportunity and discover where, maybe some things were holding you back, which is really, really powerful.
Yeah. And, I think a lot of new law firm owners, because a lot of people, both either formally or informally, I'll talk to them and they're starting a firm, or as solos that want to scale a firm, and, investing in like a case management system, or, something more sophisticated, it can seem like a huge expense. And I hear that a lot from new law firm owners. Are like, oh my God, $100 a month, or, that's thousands of dollars a year on this stuff. But it's so important, one, because you need to be organized, but two, because that's the only way. You have to have a system to collect data, because, it might not seem like a big deal when you open your doors and you have 5 clients, but when you have 500 clients, or, a lot of money coming in and out, you need to have a way to run reports and track it so that you can confirm, what you think is going on. Your kind of the gut feeling only takes you so far, and then it gets to a point where you really, really need numbers.
It makes it so much easier to make those decisions. Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, and I was just reminded of a conversation I had the other day with a law firm owner in California. She's a solo, just kind of starting out, doing very well, but she's struggling with, when do I make my first hire? And I was like, well, you make that first hire. I mean, I've heard a lot of things, right? Like have that much, have 1 year's of salary in the bank, different things like that. But really, it makes sense when it's going to make you more efficient. And then you can have more time as a law firm owner to focus on those more profitable activities. What would you say to that question?
Yeah, I think I love that question because I think the first hire is the scariest, and then you kind of get jaded to it over time. So I will say that in the very early days of my practice, I didn't do what I would advise people to do now because I didn't know any of what I know now. My first hire was a paralegal. I definitely didn't have a year of her salary and savings, and I don't do that. I wouldn't do that now. I mean, I hate that rule. I've heard that. I think that's because you're not going to have somebody working for you that doesn't make money for a year, because you should fire them in like 90 days if they're not making money. So that number doesn't make sense. Back then, I didn't even really have retained earnings or any kind of plan for that. So it was really just on a shoestring. And like you said, I mean, you're adding people that should be adding value to the firm. So my first hire was, her title was paralegal, but it was really, she was doing a lot of administrative work, paralegal, as well as administrative and booking and things like that. And I did grow pretty slowly over the first few years. I hired a few staff, and then I hired an associate after maybe 2 or 3 years, which ended up being a really, really great investment in the firm. And she's still with me today. She's a partner. And now we grow more quickly because we have, higher revenue, and we have retained earnings, and we kind of know when we're at the point where we need to add somebody. But I'm very growth minded. And so I have a hard time picturing not growing or not hiring people, because, if done right, more people means more clients that you can serve, more work that you can take on, and more money that you can make.
And I'm so glad you said that first hire can be scary. I think there really is a psychological component. Once you get over that hurdle, once you hire somebody, then you want to hire more. It's like, oh, wow, you mean this person can do all these things for me? This is amazing.
Yeah, exactly. This exercise that I learned at a conference years ago, at the CRISP conference, is something that I still do. I still do it with my leadership team now every couple of months, where you make a list of all the things that you do in a day, and then you rank it from 1 to 5. And anything that's like a 3, 4, or 5, you should be delegating. The 1 is the stuff that has to be you. That's your strengths. The 5 is obviously the least connected. And so, you look at what those 3s, 4s, and 5s are, and then that tells you what role you need to do next. So I did that myself, every couple of months for a few years. And now I have the leadership team do it. And that tells us, when it's time to hire another attorney or another intake assistant or what have you.
It's really can be so much easier and not scary than people often think. Your first hire is probably not an attorney. It's probably more a support person that you can pay, $20 an hour, and they can start part-time, and they can start as a 1099 employee. You don't have to have payroll and all kinds of stuff set up, right away. So I have another really, really big question about niching. I want to kind of get back to that. Because a lot of times I've heard this pushback that, focusing on a particular niche is just, like a marketing game or, a marketing play, right? What is really truly unique? But I bet, because we've discovered this in our business, right, is we focus on law firm owners we then got to learn all the things that are different and unique about law firm owners, and then really build a service model that was really specific to them. So I imagine you probably started with Spanish speakers, thinking broadly about what was unique, and then I bet you learned a lot along the way. Can you tell us about some of the things that you learned and how you really tailored your practice?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll try to explain this without getting too into the weeds for listeners that aren't familiar with immigration law. But immigration law is a huge practice area, and it's also very, very complicated. There's all different types of ways that somebody could get immigration status, different qualifications, and it's not necessarily based on country of origin, but because of the different requirements for different immigration cases, there tend to be trends among people from certain regions might be seeking a certain immigration status. There are a lot of federal immigration programs that specifically do relate to people from particular countries or regions, and then there's just sort of migratory trends that you see, for lack of a better phrase. And so at our firm, the majority of our clients are from Central America and Mexico. So Guatemala, El Salvador, Honduras are the vast majority of our clients. And so there are just some legal similarities that, make it easy for us to do intake and consultation. And there's also, just from kind of a client service standpoint, there's, it becomes kind of easier to communicate, and anything from just sort of familiarity with those countries, with the country conditions, can help make clients feel comfortable. So is it easier to market to a particular client base in a particular language? Yes, but also from a client relationship standpoint, if we're showing a familiarity and a connection to a particular case type or region of the world, that can be very, very powerful as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And it impacts almost how your business is structured. It impacts your core values. It impacts your purpose. It impacts like the mission of your business. How have those things changed for you as you've focused on this particular niche?
It's really just come very naturally to us, when we're doing consultations, because we're often handling the same or similar case types, sets of circumstances. Our consultations are more streamlined. Our onboarding process is more streamlined. We have all of our templates that are, easily modifiable. It helps us get cases out the door quickly, so reducing wait time for clients, and also allows us to, in turn, go back to our marketing and focus on basically answering questions or adding value that's most needed from our clients. So even not just in the sense of, okay, we're marketing in Spanish, but where a lot of our, content is answering questions that are more common among our target client audience.
100%. Okay, so now we are, turning the corner into 2025. You've come so far. What are the big plans you have for the future direction of your firm?
We are growing. We have grown every year, but this past year has really been huge for us. We have 2 international teams now, and a lot of law firms since the pandemic have started using virtual staff overseas, which is how we started. But it kind of evolved into a little bit more than having like a virtual assistant overseas. I started a company in Guatemala, and so I have a team there that are my employees, full-time employees. So they're fully, salaried, benefits, all, leave, all of that kind of stuff. That's been really amazing. We travel down there a few times a year. I always go, and I usually bring 1 or 2 people from the Richmond office so that we can really kind of make sure that the teams are integrated and showing that we're invested in them. That's been really great for the firm, because by making that investment, our team members have really, in turn invested back in the firm. And so I have folks down there that have been with us for 2 years now. And when we add people, we have a very easy time hiring there. We also recently created a team in Mexico. And so I'll be going down there to meet with them and to, again, kind of make sure that we're fully integrating them with our US team. And that, the decision there kind of reflected my values as an employer, and also, in turn has a really positive benefit on the firm. A lot of law firms have teams kind of like scattered all over the place as a cost saving measure, and while we certainly do benefit from the exchange rates, I really wanted to still maintain, that those teams were going to be part of our firm, because I believe that really reflects in how our client interactions are and how the team interactions are. So that's been a big project that we've been working on, and we'll continue to kind of refine that and build that in 2025.
Gosh, I love it. I mean, this is next level, outside the box thinking. Miriam, you are really a true visionary, and I think it's fabulous.
Well, I've been really lucky to attract so many amazing people at the firm too, because it's definitely that's a really an important ingredient. You have to have good people alongside you. Otherwise, you could have the best vision in the world, but you're not gonna be able to implement it without people.
And so much of this flows from getting really clear on who your target audience is, and then just following from that and continuing to innovate and think in new ways. So just really great example. Miriam, we're coming to the end of our time here. Is there any other wisdom, advice that you want to pass on to that solo small firm attorney that's looking to turn that page of growth?
Yeah, I think that my biggest piece of advice to a new solo or a new entrepreneur would be really not to be afraid to do things differently. And you and I have touched on that a little bit in this conversation. There are a lot of advances happening in our field. I love law. I'm very proud to be a lawyer, but it's also certainly not a cutting edge profession. And we tend to be a little bit behind the times in business practices, advertising, technology, what have you. And I think that for an entrepreneur, you can use those things to your advantage and really gain an advantage in a very traditional field. So, I know that when I first started my practice, the first 2 years, I felt like I was kind of treading water because I was just replicating what I had seen in other law firms, which, most law firms are small solos. And that didn't sync up with my vision, which was growing it. And so in order to do that, I had to kind of put blinders on and, sort of do my own thing. I mean, I do have people that I emulate and I have mentors that I've worked with over the years, but I think if you really want to be an entrepreneur, you have to jump in with both feet and be willing to be innovative.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, Miriam, if listeners want to learn more about you and your journey, where should they go?
Sure. So my Instagram handle is Lawyer Like a Mother. I'm on all the social media channels. And my firm is Arrington Law. My website is momsalawyer.com.
Thank you so much for joining us, Miriam.
Thanks. Thanks for having me. It was fun.
A big thank you to Miriam for coming on the show and sharing with us some of the secrets behind her great success and some key tips on choosing a target market for your firm. My challenge to you today is to think about how you could deepen your focus on a more specific target market, and more specifically, how then you could more align your company's, your law firm's delivery process and your service model. What unique things could you then build for your clients so that you can really focus on serving that particular niche? And what you'll find is that this will really open doors of opportunity for you. And this is a big part of what we do here at the Lawyer Millionaire Founders Network. Business planning is one of the core 3 areas that we focus on with our law firm owner clients, in addition to financial planning, because we understand that growing your business is number one for you, probably. It might top the list when as it compares to investments and cash flow, just simply growing the practice, because that means increasing your revenue, increasing your net worth, and increasing your future wealth as well. And we help law firm owners with this process as part of our business planning process, figuring out what their niche should be and figuring out how they can build a service model that more specifically serves that niche. So I invite you to jump on a call with me, and I'll show you our one-page law firm growth plan and how we can customize that for you and your particular situation. The link to schedule some time with me will be down in the show notes. Go ahead and click that link. That'll take you to my calendar, and schedule some time with me. Let's see how we can help you go deeper with your target market. Well, this has been the Lawyer Millionaire Podcast. I'm your host, Darren Wirtz, here to help you expand your business, maximize your profits, and grow your wealth. Thank you so much for listening. Come back and join me next time.